Hi everyone, and welcome to another very special Impact interview with Sportskeeda Wrestling. My guest today, well, I wasn't going to give it away, I was just going to say they're a pretty super guest. He's a Triple Crown Impact champion who recently returned to the company at Slammiversary. He's the world-class maniac, it's EY Eric Young. How's it going today, Eric?
It's going good, man, going good.
Glad to hear it. I need to start off by asking, you're someone whose name came up a lot even before Slammiversary when I was asking, any talent, who do you want to see back at Impact? They were all saying Eric Young. You were out of the company though for a pretty big chunk of time, I'd say, and a lot has changed in that time. What was it like returning to Impact? Was it like coming home, or was it like debuting somewhere completely new?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a little of both. It's interesting because, the history of the company, and I'm a pretty big part of that history. But the truth is it's all new personnel. I mean, the wrestling world is a small place, so it's all, tons of people that I've crossed paths with, tons of people that I've worked at other companies with, and a few people that are still there. I mean, for me, it felt good for my soul. It felt good to be part of something that I believe in again, which is very important for, anybody that is creative or does anything creatively or, puts them out there in any way. Like, to be part of something that you're proud of is, I think, one of the most important things for professional growth and professional happiness. So it was a big deal for me to be back. Obviously, a great spot for me to step in, and it was a very cool experience. The people that were at Impact or, before TNA that have been there for the last couple of years that brought this company back from obscurity. I was talking to Josh Matthews and Madison Rain about this. Like, they should be so proud of the work that they've done to get the company to the point where it's at now. I mean, obviously the point for me and for everybody there, the entire locker room, is to grow the company and grow ourselves. But from where it was, even a year and a half, 2 years ago, is really night and day. And it's very cool to get to step in and be part of that.
Most definitely, and it looked like you hadn't missed a step at all anyway, so it was probably the same Eric Young from a way back when it was a different company, which was great to see. The one thing that, I think I would be remiss if I didn't ask, it wasn't just yourself who ended up in Impact at Slammiversary and just after. Obviously, a lot of those guys came from the same place as yourself and are now in Impact. Did any of them ask you for any advice before signing, since you're, essentially a TNA legend?
Yeah, it's interesting. The word brotherhood and stuff like that is definitely thrown around. But in the wrestling world, because, there is no union, we are all our own business, and some guys take that more serious than others. But I can say that there's a very big group of guys that were kind of, let go all at the same time, and there was a very open conversation between all of us. I'm friends with all those guys at different levels. Very close with Gallows and Anderson. Very close with Jose. Very close with Ryder and Hawkins. These are some of my very good friends in the industry. So there was obviously an open conversation about, what we're going to do and, what's their plan. And to be honest, I'm not a person that really thinks very far ahead. Like, I had talked to Scott. I can say that Scott DeMore and me are very close, have been close for years. I've known him for 20 plus years. And he was one of the first people to call me and say, man, it sucks. And, I'm thinking about you, whatever. I knew that it was coming. It didn't really upset me. Like, it was a bit of a relief more than anything for me. Some guys took it differently. But for that, I knew that there was the option there, and it was definitely, very high on my list. But I wanted to make sure that I had all my I's dotted, my T's crossed to make sure. And to be honest, the contract really wasn't signed until about a week before Slammiversary. So it was still very up in the air. It was something that I wanted to do, but things had to be right, both professionally, financially, personally, for all of that to happen, and it did. And I've got the word fate tattooed on my right arm because I'm a big believer in that. And the world's got a funny way of working itself out exactly how it's supposed to.
Most definitely, and that fate definitely took you back to Impact. And I mentioned there that you're, somewhat of a legend around those parts. There's a lot of veterans in that locker room right now. You look at Rob Van Dam, Tommy Dreamer, Rhino, Ken Shamrock, a lot of those legends, and you are definitely one of them. I need to ask, what is your role in the locker room? What do you see it as? Are you the locker room leader? Is there a locker room leader in Impact right now?
I feel like I've always kind of taken that role. I don't know if I'm super verbal about it. I definitely, I just kind of let, my work ethic and my work and my, how I carry myself do the leading for me. I mean, like, I'm not pulling guys aside and telling them what to do. And, I'm not that, I'm not a big rah-rah guy and get everyone together and, try to make myself, look more important than I really am. I just, I go about my business the way that I've always gone about it. And that will never change, no matter my level of stardom or where I am on the show or whatever. I show up to work, and whatever I'm given, I'm going to work as hard on that thing as possible. And I think that's the kind of leadership in pro wrestling that is the best. I mean, like when someone's preaching to you, and the reality is there's a million different ways to go about it. And for lack of a better word, pro wrestling is art. So, like everyone's going to have their own take and their own way of doing things. If someone asks my opinion, I'm going to be honest. If someone, one of the younger guys asked me to watch, or if I saw their match and what I thought, then I'll tell them. If there's something that I really think they're doing wrong, I've earned it, then I can pull them aside and say, look, man, this isn't how it's done. You got to do it this way, or you got to do it that way, or think about changing this, or think about changing that. And I can say to a lot of the young guys, like, they're really hungry to learn, which is, exactly the same position I was in when I was younger and not as experienced. And I can say that wrestling on TV and wrestling just independently, those are two different things. And once you get on TV and you get, you're in this weekly program of extending your storyline, extending your character, and trying to get it over, you realize that it's a very different thing. And I feel like my number one skill set is being a very good television wrestler. So I try to lead that way and by helping when I can, but it's never a forced thing. But I can say that there's lots of potential in the Impact locker room, which is really exciting, man. It's like tons of guys that I want to work with, tons of guys that, even in my short amount of time, like, been exposed to some of the younger guys, and they're all respectful and hardworking, and just exciting to be part of a locker room like that.
Definitely, and I need to ask you a few things about the product and those other talents in a little second, but there's one question that, again, I feel like I have to ask this one, because it's, the word on everyone's lips. Kimberly just signed a long-term contract with Impact Wrestling. A lot of people don't really know much about contracts. I hope you don't mind me asking. You've been around for a while. You're obviously only 40 years old, though. I'd guess a lot of gas left in that tank. Are you a fully fledged Impact Wrestling talent? Are you on an exclusive contract and here for the long haul?
Yeah, I am on an exclusive contract with Impact. Very excited about that. And like I said, I don't look too far ahead, and that may be a detriment to me, but I've just never been a person that looks that far ahead. I think, especially with the society and the way, especially the wrestling business is, you're too worried about what's going to happen and not worried about what's happening right now. And what's happening right now is I'm in Impact Wrestling, and I'm working on making that show and my part of that show the best that I possibly can. I'm not thinking 6 months down the road. I'm not even thinking a month down the road. And I think that, that has got me in trouble before. But I'm in a position now, professionally and financially and stuff, where I don't need to worry too much. I just need to concentrate on being the best me. And like you said, I'm 40, but, doing the comedy wrestling for almost 10 years when I was Impact, or when I was with TNA Wrestling earlier, that extended my career. Like, I'm 40, but I've never missed a wrestling show from an injury, ever. Not an independent show, not a television show. I've never missed a single date, ever, because of injury. Luckily, I'm knocking on wood as we speak. But yeah, it's I do have a lot of gas left in the tank. It's just, I think for me, it's just how much longer do I want to do it? Yeah,
definitely. Sounds good. And I watched that interview you did with Chris Van Vliet where you were talking about how you're a live in the moment kind of guy. That takes me to the moment right now. I recently interviewed a man that you're looking pretty familiar with in Impact right now, Eddie Edwards. He said you were the first person that he wanted to defend that Impact World Championship against. Of course, he's been doing his open challenges, so you're not the first, but I would say you look like you're probably going to be the first major threat to him. What are your thoughts on Eddie, and when will we see that match?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Eddie is a guy that I worked with some before my exit from TNA Wrestling when he was there with Davey Richards. A guy that I respect a great deal. One of the flag bearers for Impact, and a guy that's been with the company since I left and came back. And he, professionally, Eddie has, nothing but my respect. He's a pro's pro. He can have a good match with anyone, any style. And I can say, like, we have worked, a small amount in the past, but very limited. And I'm really looking forward to the course that we're on. Because, I mean, for sure, you can see it, everyone can see it. We are on a collision course, and I'm set to make some real memories with him, man, for sure. I want people to talk about it, and I want people to talk about it all over the world, and I'm going to make damn sure that they do.
I'm already super excited for that match. I need to ask, on the opposite end of that scale, we know you've worked with Eddie in the past, but it's still going to be amazing. Are there any young talents who have caught your eye that you're desperate to work with?
Yeah, even just the, like I said, just the one match, that I've had since being back, but the guys from the Treehouse are all super interesting, super exciting. Trey obviously was in the match that I was in and really held his own, and a guy that I hadn't really seen a lot of. I'm quickly trying to pay as much attention to the show and go back and watch some of the recent pay-per-views and stuff to get acquainted with what people do and who they are and what they bring, because I feel it's an important part of being a professional. But, there's tons. Just tons of guys. And like you said, like older guys, like, a guy like Rhino was a guy that, me and him have worked together on and off for 10, 12 years, and we never really worked, never really shared a ring. I think we tagged a couple times, have been involved in a couple things, but never really worked. Shamrock is a guy that I respect a great deal and have always enjoyed him. And I can say he's a super great dude, a great professional, but I'd like to test myself against someone like him. The North, young two guys from Canada that I'm pretty familiar with are unbelievable. The machine guns are back. I've had my battles with those guys before. It's a long list. It's exciting to think, like, the position that I'm in, and the fact that Impact is definitely a collaborative effort, which, for any person that's an artist or a performer, there's nothing more rewarding than that. A very, very understated but ultra talented writing and creative team, and really the sky's the limit. There is a budget, and we don't have unlimited money, and it's not like they've been around for 100 years, but it's at the crux. I think everyone can feel the groundswell. Is Impact Wrestling is at a point where it's trending up. Even during the pandemic, it's the only wrestling company that's growing. And I think there's a lot to be said about that. When we get back in front of live crowds, maybe possibly in the future start doing live shows and road shows, expanding the roster, developing the current members of the roster and just making it better week in and week out. And that's what everybody wants to do. And it's exciting to be part of that. I can't say that enough. Like, literally, like, I'm bursting my soul. It feels so good to be in a place like that where you don't feel as handcuffed and you're not pushed into a corner. Everyone is allowed to excel and do what they do, and that's what Impact Wrestling is about. It's showing everyone's strength and highlighting.
Most definitely, and that excitement is something that definitely comes through in every interview with every Impact talent that I do. It's brilliant. I've got two final questions, two really quick ones, both very different. The first one I need to ask, of course I would be remiss not to ask you for an update on this person. Poor Rich Swann. He was on the receiving end of quite a bit of brutality from yourself recently. I need to ask, why Rich Swann? Do you know how he's doing, or do you care how he's doing?
Eric Young, the world-class maniac, could care less how Rich Swann's doing. I warned him earlier to stay out of my way. guy with, I mean, literally, in my opinion, limitless potential. You know, there's really, as far as professional wrestling goes, there's nothing that he can't do. And if he decides to come back ever again, I'll be excited to get my hands on him.
Most definitely. And I've got one final question. I recently put out an article on Impact where I said, you know, this isn't an overnight success. It might seem like it from Slammiversary, but 3 years of hard work have got to this point. Now the eyes of the world are on the product, maybe now more than ever. What do you feel about, you know, how far Impact Wrestling can go? How far do you think it can go? How far do you want Impact Wrestling to go?
Yeah, and I think, you know, a lot of the younger guys on the roster, you know, like I said with Rich, it really is limitless. You know, there's always the confines of business and money, and then the reality of it is Impact Wrestling is a business. It's just like, you know, the WWE is a business and AEW is a business, and there's always limits to what you can do, and that's just the reality. It's living inside those limits and advancing, even though those limits exist, pushing past them. And like you said, like, it's definitely not an overnight success. You know, and I think, yes, me and the Good Brothers and Heath and EC3 are a huge part of breaking these eyes. Like, I've been on TV for 16 years. You know what I mean? Like, me showing up on your show in the pro wrestling world, it's a big deal. And those guys coming there and choosing to go there, none of us had a gun against our head. I don't need to work. I mean, I'm working at Impact because I choose to. I don't need to work. I've been very smart. You know, I live a very humble and smart life, and the truth is I don't need to be there. I choose to be there because that's what I want. And I know the other guys are in the same position as me. None of them financially need to be there. They want to be there, and, you know, business is business. But the truth is you know, this has been 3 years of tons of blood, sweat, and tears. Not mine, not Gallows and Anderson, not Heath, not EC3. We were elsewhere. So I'm not patting myself on the back for where Impact is, but I am saying I will be a big part of where it's going, and so will the other guys. But I said it earlier in the interview. It's like everyone that's been there, guys that are there now, guys that have been there in the past and moved on, like, you know, the wrestling world and myself owe them a debt of gratitude because they put them in a position to succeed, and that's what we're going to do. The thing is, with the whole Slammiversary success, is now the hard work starts. You know, this is, now the eyes are on you, and people are wanting you to deliver. They're giving you their time. Time is money, and that's how the business of wrestling works. So you better make damn sure that you're ready to deliver, and I know I am.
Most definitely, and that passion, which is a word that I know defines you, comes through very loud and clear. Thank you so much, Eric. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to see what you do in Impact.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. This is fun.